We turn our attention now to the Middle East, and President Trump has issued what he describes as a last warning for Hamas to release all remaining hostages held in Gaza. In a post to Truth Social, the president warned the militant group that if it did not comply with his demand, not a single Hamas member would be safe. And he went on to say he will send Israel, quote, everything it needs to finish the job. Now, that threat came hours after the White House confirmed that U.S. officials have held direct talks with Hamas. That's a severe break from diplomatic tradition. For more on this, let's bring in CBS News foreign correspondent Deborah Patta, continuing to report from Jerusalem. Deborah, great to see you. What more can you tell us about this threat from the president and this apparent one-on-one with Hamas?
Well, Errol, President Trump did not just threaten Hamas, he also warned the entire civilian population of Gaza that a beautiful future awaits them, but not if they hold hostages, adding, and I quote, if you do, you are dead. Hamas has responded by saying that Trump's threats only serve to encourage Israel to disregard the terms of the ceasefire agreed to in January. Now, Israel, as you know, has already cut off all aid to Gaza in a bid to force Hamas to accept an alternative agreement, which would really delay talks on ending the war, but still allow for the release of at least half of all the living hostages, Errol.
And what was or has been the response in the region to these apparent direct talks between the U.S. and Hamas?
Well, as you mentioned, those direct talks with Hamas go against a very long-standing diplomatic taboo against holding negotiations with a U.S.-designated terror group. However, those talks don't really appear to have yielded any dramatic results. The initial agreement that the U.S. was party to was that in this second phase of the ceasefire negotiations, that should focus on a permanent end to the war in exchange for the release of all those living hostages. There's still more than 20 held in captivity. Israel has not participated in any meaningful talks on withdrawing troops from Gaza, and instead it's pushing this alternative plan. And their public response to those secret talks has been somewhat muted. So that leaves the truce in a very perilous state with no real plan for the way forward.
And meanwhile, Deborah, as you've been reporting, Israel continues to block the entry of aid into Gaza. That's in a bid to get Hamas to agree to a new ceasefire plan. But what is the situation inside the enclave for all those civilians caught in the middle of this?
Well, for Palestinians in Gaza who have already endured so much pain, so much misery, there is a very real fear that they could go back to the worst days of the war. Now, for 6 weeks, aid during the first phase of the truce had been entering Gaza. That was a condition of the January ceasefire deal. Now those trucks carrying food, fuel, medicine and any other supplies have all been stopped by Israel. Nothing is getting in at a time when most Palestinians are almost entirely dependent on aid. Now, the UN says that supplies will run out in less than 2 weeks, Errol.
All right, Deborah Patta, live for us in Jerusalem. Deborah, thank you.